Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the Raw Prospect Podcast. My name is Michael Ween. Thursday, May 23rd, pre-Memorial Day weekend, 9:15 p.m., and welcome back into another edition of the Raw Prospect Podcast. Today, it's fairly simple. We've got our MLB pre-Memorial Day weekend top 10 power rankings. We're a little bit over a quarter of the way through the season, and today Emmy and I are each going to be ranking our top 10 teams as it stands right now going into Memorial Day weekend. If you're tuning in live, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and share it with your friends, especially if they are baseball fans, as they might want to hear about their team if their team does make our top 10 list. At the end, we might talk a little bit about the trade deadline, which teams are kind of on the fringe of buying or selling at this moment in time. If we get there and if we have time, we will discuss that as well. We haven't really talked baseball since the season started, so we've got a lot to cover. So let's just get right into it. But before we do that, I have to welcome in my esteemed co-host, Mr. Emmy Nixon. What's up?
Nothing much, man. I've been, we've been kind of planning this MLB episode for quite a while now, and it's kind of been pushed back and pushed back. But right around Memorial Weekend, we've talked about it before. Like this is right around the time where things start to heat up. This is like the first checkpoint of the season, so we're right on time with this one.
Absolutely. So we're gonna do it like we did our NFL power rankings. We're gonna go 10-1, and we're gonna start at number 10. Do you want to start us off, or would you like me to start the festivities?
I'll go ahead. At number 10, I have the Chicago Cubs. They've been really solid with their pitching staff. Um, Shota Imanaga, one of their pitchers, is like on a stretch with like ERA that is pretty freaking insane, man. Like I haven't. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't watched much of the Cubs this season, but just looking at his numbers, it's jaw dropping. And that you can't really ignore that. And I think they deserve a spot on the list. I think despite the offensive struggles, they've been able to hang around 4 games above 500, which is still pretty solid baseball. And they're in position to where they have a lot of young players. They got a lot of prospects that they can leverage in a trade, possibly at the deadline. So I think they're in a spot that they feel comfortable right now. I think come July, we could be looking at a team that's looking to buy and try to contend.
For my number 10, I had a team that I believe is like a mirror image of the Chicago Cubs, but in the American League, and that is the Seattle Mariners. They've gotten really good pitching. In fact, I think they have a top 5 pitching rotation in all of baseball. You think about their 5 guys. Their worst guy is Bryce Miller, who's thrown 58 and 2/3 innings this year with a 24% strikeout rate and a 3.8 or wait, no. Yeah, a 3.53 ERA. Brian Wu's been fantastic. A 0.57 ERA. He would be in the conversation right now for American League Cy Young. Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, their top 3. They all have nasty stuff. They're all ace-like pitchers. Their pitching's been absolutely fantastic. They have a good bullpen. You think about guys like Andres Munoz, Trenton Thornton, Ryan Stanek, who they brought over from the Astros, who's an experienced pitcher, especially come the postseason. Their bullpen's deep. They just really haven't figured it all out offensively yet, and that's been the issue. But despite all that, they've still been able to hang around 4 to 5 games over 500, and they're leading the American League West right now. So they definitely deserve to be on the list given they're leading their division. A lot of the guys in their lineup have high strikeout rates. Cal Raleigh Not having a great season, 219 average with a 34.5% strikeout rate. Dylan Moore, he's had a good year, but he's got a 25% strikeout rate, 25%, 28%, 28%, 50%, 41%. I like to see them strike out a little less. And they're not quite scoring enough runs. And they don't have a lot of slug in this lineup. Only, let's see, I see one guy in this lineup at double-digit home runs. You got Cal Raleigh with 11 homers. It's just not going to be enough as of right now. But I really like their team, and I believe that they will get it going offensively eventually. And when they do, they could contend in the American League because not a whole lot of teams are going to be able to match up with that starting rotation in the postseason.
Yeah. I actually have the Mariners at number 9. I just flipped those two. I think, everything you said, is right on the money. Same kind of thing as with the Cubs. They haven't gotten the bats going. And we're still kind of waiting on Julio Rodriguez to hit his stride as well. And I'm not just going to repeat what you said, but I think they'll hit their stride soon. I have a pretty good feeling about this team.
Yeah, we flip-flopped. I have the Cubs at number 9. Really like what they did bringing in Shota Imanaga. He's a definite candidate for Cy Young. He's got a .84 ERA. He's been absolutely lights out in most of his outings. He's got a 7.8 strikeout percentage and only a 4.3% walk percentage. Fantastic ratio. It's about a 3-to-1 strikeout to walk. Innings, just absolutely what you like to see. Can you still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's been good. And you have, Jameson Tyone, who you brought over, who's a veteran guy, who's actually, for a 4th or 5th starter in your rotation, been pretty good. He's got a 2.2 ERA. And he's, been really good for you. You think about Hayden Wisniewski, you think about Jordan Hicks, who was brought over as a reliever, but they're pitching him good innings. Their bullpen's been good. They have guys that can do the job in their lineup. Like you think about Seiya Suzuki, who's hitting 290, 242 with a 310 on base and a 414 slug. You think about Cody Bellinger, you think about Dansby Swanson, you think about Nico Horner. They just got to get it going a little more offensively, and I think they'll be a team that will be a wild card team come the postseason and could be dangerous because I do like the overall makeup of their team. They're a team that we had ranked in our preseason top 12, and I kind of feel validated that they're still hanging around that same area a quarter of the way into the season. So I guess that will do it for our first 2 spots. I'll go ahead and go with number 8. Number 8 on my list is going to be the Kansas City Royals. They've had a really nice start to the season. There were those who were kind of forecasting a nosedive after the quick start that they had. But the pace, hasn't really slowed in May. They've reemerged as one of baseball's hottest teams as of late. And as the first checkpoint of the season quickly approaches here on Monday, there's nothing really on this Royals roster that suggests there's a looming regression coming, other than the notion that before the season, nobody really thought they would be this good. Their front office seems to be buying in. You know, they might not actually be a World Series contender, but this looks like a team that could win, around 80, 85 to 88 games and get into a wild card spot if this pace continues. They've been really good so far this season. They're scoring a lot of runs. I really like this Royals team. I'm interested to see where this takes us as we get closer to the All-Star break.
Yeah, I had the Royals at 8 also. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 6 in a row. A couple things. I don't know if I'm remembering his name correctly, but there's this kid on their team, Tanner Witt, I think is what his name is. He's been on fire the whole year, it feels like. And I mean, they just keep finding ways to win. Like for me personally, like as a casual baseball fan, I couldn't really tell you who half the guys on their team are. No, more than that. Probably 3/4 of the guys on their team. But still, I mean, they're going out there and getting it done, man. And that's what it's all about. That's why you play the game. It's not always on paper.
Yeah, Bobby Witt Jr. has been great for them. He's
Bobby Witt, that's right. Yeah.
He's got 7 home runs, 16 stolen bases. He's hitting .308 with a .365 on base, which is excellent, and a .550 slug. He's got a 150 WRC plus, a 3.2 WAR. He's been really good. He's been their best player. Salvador Perez, who kind of feels like an ageless wonder at this point. He's batting .337 with a .401 on base and the .551 slug, with a 164 runs created plus and a 2 WAR. He's been a well above average player and an excellent catcher, one of the best catchers in baseball. And you just run down the list of guys that you may not know or the casual fan might not know, but they've got 5 guys hitting over 300. So they're a really solid team offensively. And then their pitching, they're probably getting more than they expected out of their pitching. Just looking at it, their starting pitching has a 3.03 ERA. That's got to be amongst the tops in baseball. You think about veterans that they've brought over the past couple years. Seth Lugo is having a great year so far. He's got a 1.79 ERA. You think about Michael Wacha, a guy they brought over from the Rays, who, as their 4th or 5th starter, it's got a 4.45 ERA. You will take that any day of the week. And none of the guys are really giving up home runs. Their starting pitching staff has given up 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. That's less than a home run per game. You will absolutely take that. And all of their pitchers have relatively good strikeout percentages, and they're giving them good length. And then their bullpen has been kind of the sticking point on their team. They've got a 4.10 bullpen ERA. Bullpen ERA is always kind of a fluky stat, so don't take that at face value. But they still got guys in their bullpen that are getting the job done. So I really like this team. They could be a team that come the deadline could actually maybe be on the fringe of buying or selling, just because, not because necessarily their record indicates that they should be on the fringe. I think they'll actually have a record that suggests they should go for it. But I just don't know the dynamics of their front office and their team well enough yet to suggest that they would actually go really big at the deadline. I do think they could go acquire some supplementary pieces, though, to add to this roster. And that's kind of hard to say at this point, given we don't actually know what's going to be available. But as of right now, I could absolutely go, see the Royals acquiring a bullpen arm or two at the deadline, and maybe another bat if possible. It depends on what's available. But yeah, they've been kind of one of the surprise teams so far this year, and they deserve a spot, on this list. So who did you have at number 7?
I had Milwaukee at 7.
Same here.
They're always hanging around every year, pretty solid team year over year. But this year, it's been all about Christian Yelich. He's been clutch. He's been hitting extremely consistently for power as well. Like he's having the best season he's had in 5 years. It's been about health for him for a while. He's been kind of in and out of the lineup, struggling with nagging injuries here and there. But this year, he missed a few games with a back thing at one point, but it really hasn't slowed him down in the slightest. There's not much more you can say other than that. They have an MVP level player, and I think if he continues to, bring in offense, he's just got to get some support hitting here and there, and all of a sudden they got 5-6 runs.
Yeah, Yelich is having an insane year to this point. He's got by the way, I have the Brewers at 7 as well. He's got a 356 batting average, a 306 average, a 392 on base percentage. So he's getting on base virtually 40% of his at bats. 553 slugging, which means he hits for extra bases over half the time. And he's got, a 166 runs created plus, which I believe is the highest on their team. He's been their best player. But he's not the only guy chipping in. They've got William Contreras, who has 7 homers from the catching position and is batting, 333 with a 408 on base and a 523 slug, and he's got a 165 runs created plus. Bryce Turing, Willy Adames, Joey Ortiz. They're kind of unsung heroes of sorts, but they're playing good baseball, absolutely. They're good defensively. As a team, they're batting 254, so maybe not tops of the league, but certainly good enough. And then their starting pitching is kind of where I worry a little bit. They lose Corbin Burns, so I don't know if they have that top-end ace starter anymore. But it's been good enough to get them by. Freddie Peralta, I really like him. He's got a 3.81 ERA with a almost 31% strikeout percentage. Not all that familiar with the rest of this rotation, but Joe Ross is pitching to a 4.5 ERA. Robert Gasser is pitching to a 2.65 ERA. They've got a 4.22 ERA as a starting rotation. I like to see that come down a little bit. They'd probably be a team that would want to go out at the deadline and try to acquire more starting pitching. And their bullpen's been good, though. So I really like their team. They're very solid. But I think there's a separation between these teams that we just discussed and the next 6 teams on this list, who I think this is where we get into the fringe to bona fide World Series contenders. So let's go ahead and discuss that part of this list. Who'd you have at number 6?
I had the Cleveland Guardians at number 6. I was kind of on the edge of possibly moving the Braves down to this spot just because they've been they haven't been hitting as well as we would have expected, but they're still 10 games over 500, and I think with that roster they have, that I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt. But for Cleveland, they've been really impressive, man. They're back healthy this year. Johan Duran as a relief pitcher. I mean, they have their full rotation. It seems like back healthy, and I mean that's really all there was to it. They were just injured last year. That's why they completely missed the playoffs, missed out on being in playoff contention completely last year, just because they were just so injury riddled the whole year.
Yeah. Jose Ramirez, their third baseman, is having a good season. His batting average and on base percentage are not quite where you think they maybe should be for an all-star caliber player like himself, but as of yesterday, he led the American League in RBIs. He's hitting really well when they have runners on base and runners in scoring position. And I think he has some more protection this year behind him with a guy like Josh Naylor, who is been excellent so far this season. And you hope that can continue if you're the Guardians. Because that's really been the issue, is a lack of offense, a lack of star power, a lack of consistency offensively with this Guardians ball club. They play good defense. They play sound baseball. But with guys like, Will Brennan, Josh Naylor, Jose Ramirez, all hitting, Stephen Kwan at the top of that lineup, getting on base. They've been really good this season. They deserve to be in this group of teams. They've been even better than I thought they would be. And you're right. I mean, their starting rotation is absolutely getting the job done. I want to pull up their team page here, but they're absolutely, in this conversation. I know people don't watch them. They're in the AL Central. I don't know that division gets the attention of maybe the AL East or even the AL West for that matter, just because you have the two Texas teams along with, Seattle. But the Guardians have been consistent all season long. They got off to a quick start, and they've continued that. They've sustained it, and that's exactly what you want to see. So I think people are probably sleeping on them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean the consistency, that's something that not one team in the AL West can say they've done. So they definitely are going to garner more attention as the season rolls along, I think.
Yeah, it really stinks that Shane Bieber. It really stinks that Shane Bieber went down with that injury so early on in the season, or else this could be even better. But they've had guys that fill in nicely. They have the pitching depth. I think that's necessary. Tristan McKenzie, 3.44 ERA so far this season. A guy like Ben Lively has been pitching well for them. 38 innings, a 2.84 ERA. Their staff ERA as a whole is a 3.83. Not going to blow you away necessarily, but totally good enough.
Yeah.
They're hitting – what are they hitting as a team? 237, not great. They're still not great offensively, but it's better than it has been. Right. And then they've got an absolutely nasty bullpen. Emmanuel Clase, we know how good he is as one of the best closers in baseball. But, I mean, you go down this list, and they've got one of the better bullpens, I think, in the American League. So I like this Guardians ball club. All right. Let's go to number 5. Do we both have the Braves at 5?
Yes. Yeah, I have the Braves at 5 as well.
All right. Well, let's talk about Atlanta. Do you want to start us off, or do you want me to go ahead?
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, the storyline here is they're off to a slower start offensively than we probably imagined at the start of the season. When I believe, had the Braves ranked 1 in our preseason power rankings. They're still 10 games above 500, but compared to last season, they're off to a slow start offensively. They still do rank 6 in the majors in OPS, which is good. But they've had a 3-game stretch against the Cubs and the Padres where they scored just 1 run in each game. It seems like Ronald Acuna Jr. is struggling to find his power stroke a little bit. Austin Riley has been out with some kind of injury, so that absolutely doesn't help their lineup. But Jared Kelenic, who they brought over from the Mariners, and Orlando Arcia have both struggled after nice starts. The good thing is, though, for them, I think they'll get it going eventually. This is a really well-run organization, and Chris Sale really continues to be everything and more that they could have hoped for when they signed him. So, and that's a guy who's been in and out with injury over the past 3 or 4 years, and is on the latter half of his career, kind of in the twilight of his career, in my opinion. So, yeah, I still really like this Braves team. I think they're going to really get it going offensively, and when they do, that's when they'll really take off. But they certainly still deserve to be in the top 5 just because of their roster and their potential.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier as well. Like I just don't think they just haven't played well. I think they would honestly tell you that themselves as well. Like it's not like it's see a secret. They're just not playing at their best right now. And the good news is it's May. Like we have a lot of time left in the season, and what are we at? Like not even a quarter of the way through. So I mean they have a ton of time to figure this thing out offensively. Like and it's not like these players don't have the track records either. Like every single one of these guys, their numbers are down right now, and that's just kind of how baseball is sometimes. I think once they find it, we could see them go on like a 20-game win streak. I wouldn't bet against them on that.
Yeah, we're a little bit past a quarter of the way through. They've played 29% of their games, but they still have a bunch of time to get it going. Who's your number 4?
This is where I had my AL East teams. I kind of flip flopped with this one. Just going back and forth with it, but I think I ultimately went with the Orioles at 4, and like I used like the ESPN power rankings article kind of as a reference for this episode, and like I didn't want to copy it, but I actually do agree with the order that they had these in for the most part, and this was probably the only one where you could argue either way, and it really wouldn't be wrong, in my opinion, with either the Orioles or the Yankees. So the Orioles, they're pretty much doing what we would expect right now. Gunnar Henderson is, he's taken his step up. Adley Rutschman is doing what he does, being very consistent. The pitching, has been good enough, I'd say. I mean, the offense has been so good that their margin for error has just been that high to where it hasn't mattered. I mean, I think they've scored the second most runs per game in the majors. So the offense is what's driving this thing. And I wouldn't be completely surprised if they, went out and maybe filled in another gap in their pitching staff, but I'm not sure who that would be.
Yeah, to me, since it is still, pre-Memorial Day, this was a right now ranking. And to me, right now, the Yankees are playing better baseball than the Orioles are. And that's not like Yankee fandom. That's
Yeah.
actually a fact. But if I'm picking a team right now to get to the World Series in the American League, I might lean Baltimore, but that's a really close conversation.
Definitely.
I think, with what they've done, really what it comes down to with Baltimore is like how they've drafted. They've capitalized on so many prime opportunities with how bad they used to be. They've developed these guys. They've come up quickly, and they've all pretty much hit. And they've come together to form a really good, well-rounded team. Um, they're relentless offensively. They are struggling a bit in May, but in the ups and downs of a baseball season, even the best teams have like around 500 months. And when you get off to the start that the Orioles did, which was a really good start as we expected, you can afford to have a couple weeks where you play 500 baseball because that's just how the baseball season works. Nobody, aside from a couple teams in the history of the league, don't have those stretches where they're playing around 500 baseball for a couple weeks. They started April, or they finished April, second in the majors at almost 5.5 runs per game. Like they're so good offensively when they're at their best, but they are struggling a little bit. It's down to around 4 runs per game this month. They're 10-8 right now in the month of May, which isn't bad, but it's not quite what they were, in April. I think they'll get it going again here soon offensively. They've got the second best starting rotation ERA. So I don't even know that they need a piece, at the deadline. It depends on what's available. But, I mean, you can never have enough pitching. So they might do it anyways. They've got a 3.22 staff ERA. You look at what they've done as a team offensively. I mean, it's really good. Gunnar Henderson leads, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, Adley Rutschman, who I'd actually, say is probably the best catcher in the American League.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's particularly close. Jorge Mateo, Ryan Mountcastle, Anthony Santander, Ryan McKenna, Cedric Mullins. It's a very good team.
And who's the kid that they called up as well? Like, I think the former number 1 pick they called up also.
Yeah, they called him up and then they sent him back down, and I think they're going to call him up here again soon. But when he comes up, they'll be even scarier. Yeah. So I really like the Orioles. They're going to be a real tough out come the postseason. They got their battle scars last year when they won 100 games and got swept. I think they'll be better suited this year to go in and really compete.
Definitely.
Let's move on. Who's your number 3? Is it the New York Yankees?
Yeah. This is where I had the Yankees. I mean, they're playing fantastic baseball. Definitely. To me, it really just came down to, I think, the Dodgers, like with their 3, with their, Freddie Freeman, Shohei, and Mookie. Like, I think I would put that up against, anyone in baseball. And then with the Phillies, I think they're the hottest team in baseball right now. So it just would have felt wrong to put the Yankees in front of them. But even so, it's not even close to knocking the Yankees and what they're doing right now. They're definitely making do on this Juan Soto rental, and I say rental in quotes because he's probably going to resign, but we don't know yet. So they knew that they had a window, and they're capitalizing right now, and you gotta credit them for that. Their pitching has been right back to where you want it to be. And has Garrett Cole come back yet? Is
No,
he coming back soon?
he's coming back in June sometime, but
Okay,
he hasn't
yeah,
pitched yet.
yeah, and they're still waiting on Garrett Cole. So
They're waiting on DJ LeMahieu, who comes back. I think next week in the Angels series. They're going on a West Coast trip. They're going to play the Padres, and they got the Angels and I think the Giants on this West Coast trip coming up. And the Yankees have never really been great on West Coast trips, obviously, because it's a long road trip. And there are some good teams out west. But with the way they're playing, I think they'll be able to sustain a 500 stretch over that time period. I've got some stats and I've got a little more to say, but I'll make it quick. I want to give you a series of home run stats. We call them the Bronx Bombers, so here we go. Yankees hitters, and this is how good their offense has been this year, because last year it was historically bad for a Yankees team. Yankees hitters have 10 home runs when facing the starting pitcher for the third time in a game this year. So when the lineup turns a third time through, or when the starting pitcher, when the lineup turns a third time through, they have 10 home runs. So the more they see them, the more they hit. That's tied for the most in the American League. Yankees hitters have 20 home runs on the first pitch of at-bats this season. They're aggressive early in counts, and they connect. That's the most in the American League. Yankees hitters have 25 home runs on plate appearances that last 5 or more pitches. That's the most in the American League. Yankees hitters have 26 home runs versus relief pitchers this season. When teams go to their bullpen, it doesn't matter. They continue to hit bombs, most in the American League. Yankees hitters have 27 home runs with 2 strikes this season. Situational hitting, Juan Soto has helped with that. Alex Verdugo has helped with that. That's the most in the American League. Yankees hitters have 36 home runs on the road this season. Doesn't matter home or away, they're hitting bombs. That's the most in the American League. Yankees hitters have 36 home runs with runners on base this season.
Wow.
That is the most in the American League. It continues. Yankees have 73 home runs so far this season. That's the most in baseball. They have 70. They have 9 home runs on pitches out of the zone this season. That's tied for the most in the American League. They've got, the list goes on and on. But overall, it's been a much better offensive approach. It's been a much better offensive team. I want to pull up the Aaron Judge, Juan Soto stats because they're just ridiculous. I don't know if people actually realize what they've been doing lately. Judge got off to a really slow start for Aaron Judge. He struggled all through April, but he missed a good portion of spring training with some kind of injury he was nursing. Of course, we know going back to last year, he hurt his toe on the wall at Dodger Stadium, making an excellent catch in a series with the Dodgers. And that really, at that point, if the Yankees season wasn't really in a tailspin, it went into a tailspin after that because he missed more than a third of the season, and that offense just wasn't good enough to sustain that. I think if that happened, like if Judge goes down for a couple weeks this year, they're much better suited to sustain an injury to him. It wouldn't be great, but they have Juan Soto, so it wouldn't be like they're devoid of any star power at that moment in time. And I think something we have to mention is who were the question marks coming into this season? What were the question marks when we did our preseason power rankings episode? I think at that time knew that Garrett Cole was going to be out an extended period of time. So we said, okay,
Stanton.
Yeah, I'll get to that. But we knew the big one was, okay, well, they're missing the unanimous Cy Young winner from last year in the American League, Garrett Cole. How is this patient going to deal with that, given that Carlos Rodon is coming off a horrible season where he dealt with injuries? He hasn't looked like the same pitcher that he was, or he hadn't yet looked like the same pitcher that he was in San Francisco. They did bring over Marcus Stroman, but who at the start of last year was very good and has been very consistent in his career, but has also dealt with injuries. He had an injury pretty much the entirety of the second half last year, which took him out of the National League Cy Young race with the Cubs. Nestor Cortez was coming off a not so great season. And then I had faith in Clark Schmidt, but because I watched the Yankees, but other people still had questions about him and can he go deep enough in the games? So like, given all of that, they've had fantastic starting pitching. Like it's been to the point where Carlos Rodon looks a lot better. He's not quite what he was in San Francisco, but he's really good. Like as the number 2 or 3 starter on this team, I will take a 3.27 ERA with a 23% strikeout percentage. Nestor Cortez has bounced back well this year with a 3.29 ERA. But they're not even the stories. Marcus Stroman has been a welcomed addition to this team with the stability that he provides. It's like the 3 or 4 starter, a 3.05 ERA. And then Luis Gil. Not a lot of people know the name yet, but he's firmly in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. They brought him up. He was out all last season with Tommy John. He comes back this year. He steps into his starting rotation as the 5th starter, kind of in lieu of Cole. And nobody, I think, could have expected this. He's got a 2.11 ERA this season. He's like, if he continues this, he'll be the Cy Young Award winner in the American League as a rookie. So, yeah, it's been the starting rotation's been excellent. Hopefully that continues until Cole gets back. Clay Holmes, the closer, I think was a little bit of a question mark. He's been good. Up until I think it was Monday, he had not given up a run so far this season. He had a little bit of a blow-up outing Monday against the Mariners, but that's really been his only bad outing so far this year. So we'll absolutely take that. And then the lineup, Judge and Soto are awesome. It's better than I think I would have expected. Soto's batting .313 with a 409 on base and a 569 slug. It's been absolutely fantastic and a joy to watch him. He's got 13 homers or 14 homers after today. And then Aaron Judge has 15 homers, and he's batting .270 plus with a 405 on base and a 585 slug. But Giancarlo Stanton slimmed down during the offseason, looks a little bit different this year, still can't run for shit, but we knew he couldn't run. He's never really been a runner in the first place. He's been more of a power guy. Hasn't lost a beat. He's batting .250, which I absolutely would have signed up for at the start of this season. He's got 12 home runs, 11 or 12 home runs, and he's got a 123 runs created plus. I would have absolutely taken that so far this year. The really weak point in the lineup has been Gleyber Torres, who has not been very good this year for them. And I think at the end of this season, it's very unfortunate for him. I hope he gets it going. But either way, I don't think he's a candidate to be re-signed by the Yankees just because, I mean, if I'm choosing between paying Glaber and paying Soto, I'm using that money for Glaber to give to Soto. It's just anybody can figure that out. And then I think there's other Yankee conversations that I'm having in my head. Like I think eventually with Dominguez coming back, although that might be after the All-Star break, I think there's a good chance if they do re-sign Soto, say going into next year, that at some point to preserve the longevity of Judge's career, since he's been playing a lot of center field, they'll either move him back to right field and let Dominguez play center, which is where he needs to play. He's a center fielder through and through. That's the Martian, by the way. Or they'll move Judge to first base. We've seen Bryce Harper make the transition from outfielder to first base. I think you could see Aaron Judge do a little bit of the same thing, especially since Anthony Rizzo has, I think, a player option at the end of this season, and so they could be lacking for a first baseman. So we'll see what happens with that, but overall, I'm pleased with this Yankee season so far. So I think this, when it's all said and done, this could go down as one of Cashman's best moments. If they can end up re-signing Soto and having him around for the next decade plus, having him and Judge in the prime of their careers to kind of hopefully salvage, I guess, the second half of this Garrett Cole contract and hopefully capture a championship. It would go down as probably one of Cashman's better, if not best move of his tenure with the Yankees. So I'm excited. I do think they need more in their bullpen. That's my biggest issue right now. They don't have enough names in this bullpen. I think you'll go maybe not a closer anymore since Clay Holmes has been really good, but they need like another guy because Jonathan Loáisiga went down with Tommy John. So, and at any point in this season, they could lose one of these guys. So injuries happen. So that's my Yankees spiel. Thank you for listening. And let's move on. For me, in my rankings, I have the Dodgers 2 and the Phillies 1. Is that what you have?
Yeah, that's what I had as well. I think the Dodgers are incredible, man. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. Like as much as I would root against them if it were to come down to Rangers or Astros or between them and the Dodgers, I would probably root against the Dodgers. But even so, like the Dodgers are the team that I've watched the most of this season, just because of Shohei. Like it's just the reality of it, man. Their box office and them having Walker Buehler back healthy as well, like their team is stacked, man. I like we said it before the season, obviously. Like it's not a secret. But man, like it's seeing it on the diamond is it's just nasty just having those three guys back to back.
Yeah, it's it's kind of mind-blowing, to be honest with you. It's and to think that this isn't the team that's number one in our power rankings is just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And it speaks to what the Philadelphia Phillies have done, winning 29 of their past 35 games, which is just like red hot. I don't even know a word to describe how hot they are. But Shohei Ohtani,
Inferno. Sorry.
A 354 batting average. A 422 on base percentage and a 646 slug with a 202 runs created plus.
What?
And a 3.2 WAR.
What?
So he's like mounds better than the average MLB player. He's got 13 home. He's got the same amount of home runs as stolen bases, 13. He's box office, as you said. There's no really other way to describe it. And that's with everything that happened right before the season, where he was under the microscope for what happened with his interpreter. Mookie Betts on any other team would get all the attention.
Yeah.
For being by far and away the best player on that team.
I mean, I know Red Sox fans that are still mad about trading Mookie. I mean,
but since you have a guy named Shohei Ohtani on your team, you get overshadowed a little bit. But I think if you ask Mookie Betts, as humble as he is, he doesn't give a shit. He loves to go under the radar, batting .330 with a .430 on base and a .540 slugging percentage with a 180 runs created plus. That's just ridiculous. And then Freddie Freeman, for that matter, to boot in the 1-2-3 is batting .331. 286 with a .395 on base percentage and a .475 slug with a 123 runs created plus, which is a very good all-star caliber season. But when you have guys like Ohtani and Betts, two of possibly like the 5 best players in the league, I think they are, for that matter, you get overlooked. And then you have Teoscar Hernandez, who's been a welcome addition for them, added some power to the middle of that lineup with 11 home runs. And then Will Smith, who's been productive for you, batting over 300. Is it just me, or are a lot of catchers having really good seasons? That's interesting. I'll have to look into that. But, yeah, I mean, and then you look at their pitching. There's a reason they brought in Tyler Glasnow. They knew Kershaw, although, he's in the twilight stage of his career. They bring in Glasnow, who's battled through some injuries, but was the ace of the Rays, and he's been really good, a 3.09 ERA. And they got him, I think, on a relative bargain for as much talent as the guy has. And then Yamamoto, who was their other big offseason acquisition with Ohtani, he's pitched really well, a 3.17 ERA. He struggled in his first 1 or 2 starts, but outside of that, it's been really good. It's been like he's pitching to, I think, his contract.
Yeah.
Which is all you could have hoped for if you were the Dodgers this year. And then Walker Buehler coming back is huge. He's got 3 starts so far this year and has been good in those starts. But he's not really being relied upon to be a top of the rotation guy like he was a couple years ago. I think that will take some pressure off of him. Bobby Miller hasn't quite had the season you might have hoped for, but Gavin Stone's been really good. And they've got a lot of other guys that, can give them good innings. James Paxton, a veteran guy who's giving them good innings. In 8 starts, he's got a 2.84 ERA. So they're just really good. There's no other way to say it. I think they're around where the Yankees are record-wise. The Yankees won today, so they're 35-17. I think the Dodgers are pretty much the same at this point. They're probably playing right now, knowing, when most of their games are. I think at the end of the season, we could definitely be looking at this team as World Series champions. And then the Phillies, for that matter. I mean, what do you even do at this point? The story with them, in my opinion, is Ranger Suarez. He has been almost unhittable at times.
Yeah.
He's, I believe, through his first 10 starts this year, he's 9-0 with a 1.35 ERA. That's historically good. And then you throw in the rest of that rotation in this lineup. They're playing really good baseball. And the Phillies, the past half decade, like I don't remember them being a team that started off fast. They've typically been a team that figures it out later on in the season and are dangerous come the playoffs. But this season might be, they're dangerous start to finish. They could win this division. 36-14 is just ridiculous. I'm going to do the math real fast on what kind of pace that is, because that's something else. But go ahead and give your word or two on the Phillies.
Yeah, man. It's funny you mentioned Ranger Suarez because like I had watched a video from this channel called Baseball Doesn't Exist on whether being fat like helps you pitch better.
Oh, I watched that video. I thought that video was very informative.
Yeah. And like Ranger Suarez is just like carrying on the legacy, man. It's I mean, golly, man, he's just been ridiculous. Like I didn't think he had this in him. I thought he was like a good starter, but
Nobody
I mean,
did.
their headliners have been their top two guys for years now. Like that was their calling card. Like the reason our pitching staff is good because we have two of the best pitchers in baseball. What's his nuts? You know
Aaron Nola, Aaron Nola, and Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah, what's his nuts? They're on pace for 118 wins this year.
Golly,
they're not going to get there, but yeah, that's
what's the most all time?
That would pass the I think it's the 01 Mariners. It's either the 98 Yankees or the 01 Mariners at like 114 or 116.
Jeez.
Something like that. Yeah, it's nutty.
I kind of hope they do it. Just so they can just so the Philly fans can feel the disappointment in the playoffs again.
And I think
I am evil.
Let me look at it real quick. They've got the highest run differential in baseball, plus 93. Second is the New York Yankees at plus 84. And the worst run differential in baseball by a million is the Chicago White Sox.
Can I guess? The White Sox. Yep.
Yeah. The White Sox, like, minus 109.
How are you so bad?
Minus 109. No other team is worse than. See, no other team. Well, the Marlins are kind of terrible, but they're only minus 82. Like they're not really close to the White Sox, who are minus 109.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's you always have your bottom dwellers in baseball, but if I'm not mistaken, like I don't feel like there's as many like absolutely awful teams this year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. No.
Like you can probably name 3 or 4 maybe. Like the White Sox are legitimately awful, like historically bad.
Like there's a bunch of like okay-ish teams. Like the Cardinals, for example. Like they're not good, but like they're not bad either. You know?
Yeah, and like, there's a couple teams that are, like you have the Reds, who are not as good as I thought they would be at 20-30, but they're only 8.5 games back in their division, and 1 or 2 good weeks gets you back to around 500 from that record. There's only a couple teams that are like well below 500 and are falling way out of contention. Those to me would be the Rockies, who are 16-33. The Marlins, who are 17-34, and the White Sox, obviously, who are 15-36. But like you look at the bottom team in each division, aside from those, and it's the Angels, who I don't consider a good team, but they're still 20-30. Like they're winning games.
Competitive.
The Blue Jays, who are kind of off to a rough start for the standard that I held for them coming into the season. Like this is a year that they need to win. But they're 23 and 26, so they're not. I mean, they're right around, middle of the pack in terms of baseball. And then you look at teams like, the Reds, like I mentioned, or the Diamondbacks. Like all of these teams are winning games.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to mention is like, look at the Oakland A's. They're not bad. They're 6.5 games out of the division. They're obviously not going to win the division, but they're 21 and 31, only 10 games below 500. They're only 2 games back of the Astros. So like they're actually somehow competitive this year. The Tigers got off.
Even though like the Rockies, I think they swept the Rangers like a week ago. Also, like
yeah,
it's just weird shit that keeps happening.
But the point is like I think that's good for the league.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a good conversation. Okay, well we'll wrap this one up. I don't think we have time to get to the trade deadline stuff, but we'll do that in a future episode.
Yeah.
I
will say real quick though, like the Blue Jays just continue to piss me off. Like, how do you suck so bad? Like, how? Like, I'm trying to think of like a comparison for like their mediocrity with all that talent, and I figured it out. They're the Chargers of the MLB.
There you go. Yeah, they're for as much talent as they have on that team, they can't hit. Like you watch them, and
insane.
Their games just make you fall asleep.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. Our next baseball episode is going to be the haters' guide to each contender. And we're going to fucking go in on some of these games. And we're going to do that in 2 or 3 weeks.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
I've already come up with
that idea.
We're not holding back on this one. Now you kind of have to be factually correct. Like you can't just make shit up. But we're gonna crush some of these teams just for the fun of it. Okay, well that's gonna do it for episode number 1 tonight. We'll be back for another one. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you want us to do another power rankings, say around the All-Star break, let us know if you enjoyed this episode. Share it with your friends. Make sure you like and subscribe. And we will see you shortly for episode 2 of the night. Do you have any parting shots?
If you made it to this point in the pod, just put Blue Jays suck down in the comments.
Yeah. Just fucking murder the Blue Jays.
That's how we'll know that you made it to the end.
Say whatever the fuck you want about the Blue Jays. Yeah. You can say whatever you want. I don't really care. All right, we're out. Peace.